What's up, everyone? Octoberz here with my co-host Melly,
What up, everyone?
and we're here with another episode of the Heartful Truth. This is season 4, episode 3, right? Yeah,
Yes.
3. And today we have another dope guest. We met him, I think, through I guess going out to events. And we kind of interviewed some. Well, actually, Blanca is the only one that we've interviewed the same. I think maybe I don't know.
Think so.
But yeah, that's like our connection. And he's Alex Catano. He is the podcast host of We Are Catanation Studios. And yeah, we're happy to have him on today. So let me put him on the screen here. Hey,
Hey, hi everybody.
how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you. And
Yeah.
I'll pass it on to Mel if you want to kind of talk about a little bit about the topic for today, and we'll go from there.
So this topic, we kind of wanted to dive into anxiety and depression. Since I know that you're pretty open about it, and I know we're pretty open about it, and pretty much our podcast is about mental health in general. So to start off the conversation in regards to that, we'll start off from, I guess, the top and then work our way in deeper. What was your childhood like?
So I grew up with divorced parents.
Mhm.
They got divorced at age I was age 4. So there was like a lot of back and forth going on.
Mhm.
So there was like a lot of like kind of moving around.
Yeah.
So like I felt like the only place where like it was like consistent for me was
Mhm.
definitely school.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And me working with kids at the moment, it's kind of made me see a lot of like how, how to work with kids as well. So
Mhm.
just like, okay, I know how the trauma that they go through, and then I kind of learned from it. And I still talk to both my parents. I love them to death.
Yeah.
It was definitely hard, but I kind of learned to adjust and grow into it. But over time, it's just become like kind of like my life story of like having divorced parents and kind of like learning how to process through that.
And how like did you ever, like, now as an adult, did you ever have that conversation with your parents of like how the divorce affected you and stuff like that? Do you have like open conversations with them about it?
I have now. I think it took me maybe 10 years to like
Yeah.
finally talk about it because that's a hard
Mhm.
conversation to
Yeah.
have. But I mean, they were very supportive. They were really open about like me sharing, and even me talking about my
Yeah.
mental health in public. They understand because like it's
Yeah.
not like I'm attacking them or anything.
Yeah. No,
Exactly.
definitely.
Yeah, and it's good you bring that up because we were just talking about that in our first episode where there's this artist that we love called Russ. He's like a rapper and he just
Mhm.
released a project and he talks about, and he did a couple interviews to do the promo run for the album, and he
Yeah.
talks about how the childhood trauma affected him and how he still loves his parents, and he learned to forgive them because they were just trying to do their best that they could. And we talk about that with our parents too because they were like young. I'm pretty sure your parents might have been young as well when they had you, and so they were kind of kids too, so they were kind of learning, and then they didn't really think
Yeah,
about
they
like
don't
the
give you like a
effects.
manual to be a parent. So it's kind of like you're kind of trying your best. And sometimes, sadly, your own childhood traumas go on to your kid without you even trying, which you're always trying to better yourself.
And like you mentioned, you're really open about like your mental health as far as like you're dealing with anxiety and depression. When did you have that realization that you were having like anxiety or depression, and how has that journey been for you?
So the first time I ever noticed it was actually in college, my
Okay.
freshman year of college. So the way of how my life has been, I've always been kind of like always trying to like talk to people, and I was always like that kind of person in the bubble where like I was there, people were nice to me, people talked to me, but I was always like the calm and quiet one.
Uh-huh.
And even though I tried to jump in the conversation, it was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And however, when I started college, my whole circle changed, and it almost felt like I was like the like guy that everybody talked to because I was so into movies and I was so into podcast stuff, and it's something out of the ordinary for people. So it kind of felt different, and I was like so happy. And I
Yeah.
kind of go back to like the friends that I've made in high school, and I was like, okay, they're gonna be gone, they're gonna move on to their other things. And then in college, when I started noticing that, I was like, man, I do not want to lose these people anytime soon. And I think that was the first time I was like started thinking like, oh man, I'm gonna start losing people and losing people. And sometimes even now, like I forget to enjoy like the little moments that I have,
Mm-hmm.
such as like friends who even have been on the show. Like I've created a bond with them, and people move on to like other things.
Yeah.
It's just more of like, okay, like, let's just enjoy like the moments that we have right now. Let's
Yeah.
have a good time.
Mhm.
And I'm learning as I'm going as well too. I'm still learning as I'm going because it's really hard to like kind of like, uh, have people accept you for that. And
That's
That's
true.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed that I was gonna give you like kudos too, because when I read your voyage, was it a ST Voyager or was it
yes.
right? That I was like I didn't know that you were that young, and so I was like it's kind of
Yeah.
cool that you're like I feel like your generation and even the younger ones are thinking more about that stuff like mental health, because
Yeah.
and especially like coming from like Latino cultures, like
Mhm.
we don't talk about that stuff at home, or like people dealt with it, but we didn't consider it like anxiety or depression, because I know like my dad suffered of anxiety and
Mhm.
depression as well, but at
We
first he
never
never really
really,
talked about it.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool that like you realized that you had it, and then also kind of like doing things to better yourself and also like take care of your mental health, which is really important.
That is, yeah. And going back to kind of like your childhood, how was your relationship with your siblings, if any, and how is it now?
So I am the oldest, and
Okay.
I actually have all sisters.
Oh,
Oh wow. Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I have a sister with, and we always joke about this,
Yeah.
but so I have a sister with, same mom and dad, and then I
Hmm.
have another sister, different dad, same mom, and then the
Yeah.
last two are different mom, same dad.
Okay.
Yeah, so me and the oldest sister, we
Yeah.
always joke about this, like explaining the family tree to school
Yeah.
and stuff. Um, but I have kind of grown and like appreciate them. Obviously, when we're
Hmm.
kids, we fight all the time,
Yeah.
but over time, we kind of like learn to like love each other for who we are. Cause even my mom always has to remind me like, hey, like we're not gonna be here forever.
Hmm.
Your sisters are the only thing you got right now, so just like love them and take care of them. That's one thing that I learned.
That's beautiful, yeah. Because I
yeah,
think it's like sometimes like there's some siblings that like how you said you grow up like arguing, and I think with some siblings you end up like me and her like as we got older. Because before when we were younger we were not that close. We have
hmm
another sister which I was kind of closer to her, but now it's like other like side drama with that. But me and her like gotten like more closer as like we're doing podcasts. Like we kind of bond over like the creative side and everything. So it's cool that you're saying that because it's true. Like I think family, if it's a good, not toxic, it's good to build that relationship and keep that, like, treasure that.
yeah, and especially because you're like a male, so obviously a female and male is like a whole different thing too. So because
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some people that I knew that had siblings that were girls and they were guys, and they didn't really have that like bond. So that's cool
Mm-hmm.
that you have that with them. Um, has your having your podcast, has it helped you with your mental health? If so, how, or what positive impact has your podcast had on you?
It's definitely had the positive impact in knowing that, like, yes, I'm impressing people for what I'm doing, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I'm impacting the people's lives that have been on the show. There's people who have never been on a podcast before, and they're overwhelmed, and they're like
Mm-hmm.
completely happy that they got that opportunity. And I've had
Yeah,
people who, know me personally, and then they're like, "Oh, that's super cool that you're doing that."
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a huge like ride, like an enjoyable thing to do because I get to basically meet friends as I'm doing this. Like it's not just about you know building a community. It's not For me. It's also about making friends, and that's kind of something that I never thought I would have, like, given at such a young age.
Oh, sorry. It's because it kind of
and
like
then just
went.
put your hand a little bit
Yeah.
lower. Yeah, because it gets picky.
What has helped you to cope with your anxiety and depression, and that you would think be helpful for others that are listening to the podcast?
Well, one thing for sure, I have been going back to therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been something that it was tough for me to like accept that, like, okay, I need therapy,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to do it for myself and for the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think also like know who you're really friends with. I think that should
True.
be a number one thing. Because sometimes even in this world we let business get in the side of things, and
That's
it
true.
just like
Mm-hmm.
ruins like what was a great friendship or a
Very
great
true.
relationship.
Yeah.
That's something that I always like tell people, because it's just like, you don't want to lose what you already had and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And that's something that I still am coping with.
Hmm
Um, and I think the best thing for anybody is just be who you are. Like if you are this person that is very upjoyous and goes above and beyond, go ahead and do that, but just know that, not everybody will accept that, and
Mm-hmm.
just know
That's
that
true.
there's going to be people who are going to be taken the wrong way, but just always have that communication. I think that's something that we also lack on, is communication with others.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's true.
Yeah, because I think that's one thing that I had to learn too is like, or both of us are like this, where we're like, we give a lot in a friendship, and
Mm.
sometimes we realize that not everybody's the same, which is, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard, isn't it? It's hard because you're like, when you
Mm-hmm.
expect like something that you do, but that person doesn't do it, it's just either a
Yeah.
personality or the way you were raised. I don't know what it is, but
Mm-hmm.
it is kind of hard to grasp that sometimes.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would share a story.
yeah,
So I
yeah, of course.
work with kids,
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
and the kids were asking me like, "Oh, when's your birthday?" And so my birthday is January 1st. So that basically means that I've never had a birthday at school ever, because it's winter break and stuff. So the kids felt bad, and I was like, "Nah, don't feel bad. It's whatever and stuff." And I will never forget this. So May 17th, through between the weeks, everybody kept asking me all these questions like, "Oh, what's your favorite color? What do you like to do and stuff?" I did not know this, but my coworkers and those kids planned a whole birthday for me, like on that day.
Oh,
Oh,
that's sweet.
that's
That
pretty
was like
cool.
such a super cool moment for
Yeah.
me.
Aw.
And I think it's yours.
Um, and would you say you have a support system? And do you think other people can support someone who is dealing with depression or anxiety, or how do you think they can support someone that's going through that?
For the most part, I think people just have to be heard. I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the things that we as humans do, we try to always give suggestions. We always try to
Mm-hmm.
like be like, oh, this is what you have to do. Maybe I can help. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people just want to be heard. And that's something that
Mm-hmm.
I'm also struggling to see. I'm like, okay, this person's telling me this. I should listen, but I should not get involved. I should not try to like
Yeah.
be that person trying to help all the
And
time.
that's
We
so
were
true.
talking
We were
about
just,
it.
we
Yeah.
literally were just talking about that because it's true. Sometimes some people just want to vent, like they just want ears, like you letting it out and then not saying anything, no opinion, no advice, nothing, just sitting there and being with them, like the presence.
Yeah. Um, and what do you do to take care of your mental health? Like any like exercise or hobbies that help you with your anxiety or depression?
For a long time, the podcast has been what's
Mm-hmm.
helped me out a lot. I think for me now is just kind of just putting my focus a lot on what I do. For those of you who do not know, I'm working on 100 shows. That's kind of been
Yeah.
taking a lot of my
Mm-hmm.
time, and that's been kind of something that I've been using to kind of cope with my anxiety and
Yeah.
depression, just kind of like keeping myself busy. That's something that I do. I know it doesn't work for everybody. Some people just
Mm-hmm.
want to relax and sleep,
Yeah.
but I feel like
Yeah.
for me, I think like I have to like be active in order to like feel some sort of like, back away from the anxiety and the depression.
Yeah.
And then kind of touching to like a little bit more personal topic. When would you say was the last time you cried? And maybe you would like to share why.
Um so um I mean, I cry a lot, especially now that I go to therapy, but I
Mm-hmm.
think for me one of the biggest standouts was just like everything that I went through that I'm not going to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But 2023 was definitely one of those like rough years for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like to a point where like I didn't feel like accepted anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you heard the season finale of season 5, but
I don't think so. I don't
so
think I feel.
I think I might have.
Okay.
I think I.
it was with Miriam and Luz.
Oh yes, I did. I listened to
Okay.
that
You
one.
did.
So at the very end, I referenced that YouTube would kick off season
Yes.
6, and that it's gonna lead to the Road to 100
Mm-hmm.
podcast. The reason why I did that is because, one, I definitely wanted to get people excited, but the second reason, I generally believe that if I didn't make that announcement, I could have sworn that would have been the final episode,
Okay.
because I was at a point now where I was like, I don't know if I feel like I'm ready to continue on from there.
Yeah, kind of like to
Hold
keep you
accountable.
accountable, right? That you
Yeah.
were gonna go ahead and go through with it.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, okay, now that I made that announcement, now I have to
Mm-hmm.
commit.
Yeah.
And what I mean, I know I don't want to push too much if
Yeah.
you don't want to talk about it. But what made you want to be like, I don't want to do this? Was it something that like personal that was going on in your life? That's why you didn't want to like continue doing the podcast at
It,
that point, or
it was definitely something personal. I won't, like I said, I
yeah,
won't get
yeah.
into it, but I think for me, it was just more of like, I just didn't want to get hurt again.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
makes
Hmm.
sense. And actually kind of leads a little bit to
Mm-hmm.
this because we're talking about anxiety, depression, and a lot of people also depression. I feel like it has. I don't think a lot of people know what it is. Sometimes I think people are just like, oh, you're always like unhappy or something like that. But it's more. And obviously you can speak more on that if you want of how it affects you. But what's your definition of happiness, and how do you feel it is attainable?
So for me, happiness comes whenever I do know that I'm doing something right, and it's something that I can actually be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, like, yeah, I want to keep doing what I did. Like, I want to keep pursuing this
Mm-hmm.
because I love how it makes me feel. I love what it's making others feel. And I think that for me, that was my view of happiness
Mm-hmm.
for a long time.
Has it changed, or you think it's still the same?
I think I would say it's adjusted because now I'm at a point where I'm doing this more for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, I thought doing things for myself was considered selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I learned to myself, like, no, I have to like
Mm-hmm.
think in the long term, how is it gonna benefit me, or how is it gonna make me happy in the long run. And obviously you can't make everybody happy, but
Mm-hmm.
can you make yourself happy? That's the number one thing.
That's true.
That's very true. And what would you say are your thoughts on how society handles mental health? Do you feel there has been advances or there's still a lot of work to do?
There's more advances, I would want to say. I think for me, um, I um, I think for me, I've been involved in like a lot of things from City Heights Rotaract,
Mm-hmm.
Mental Wellness for Artists, Cafeina Cafe. There's just a lot of things that I've been involved with in my
Yeah.
community, and I think it's also helped a lot of people open up about their mental health and about where they are in a point of life. And I thought to myself, like, I was like I even mentioned, like, that podcast that I did, it could have been the last one,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a great podcast. And I was like, you know what, I felt like at that point you've done it all, we can move on to what's next in your
Mm-hmm.
life. But in reality, you also want to see where else life can take you instead of just quitting right then and there.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. And what has been like your greatest accomplishment? I mean, you kind of mentioned it right now, like the podcast episode, but is there anything else or that stands out for you?
Something else that stands out for me, definitely just being able to share my story on other shows. That's
Mm-hmm.
been super cool. I've appeared on TV once for KPBS.
Nice.
That was completely random, and it was actually kind of awesome.
Yeah.
But I think for me, my biggest accomplishment has just been the people and connections that I've built across these past 2.5 years with
Mm-hmm.
Catanation and with other things that I have been involved with. And I think that for me has been like one of my proudest moments, just seeing who I've been connected with, who I've been friends with, and even like, yeah, every person who has been on my show, like, I wholeheartedly think that they are up to great things, and I just pray that they are just continuing on their path,
Yeah.
and that they are just keep thriving. I would say that.
And kind of sorry, I'm still your question real quick, but um for your podcast, we didn't even get into it, like because
Yeah.
I know we're talking about mental health and stuff like that. But I do want to know, like now that you brought it up, like how did we're Catanation Studios, like how did that come up? Like how did you decide, like I want to do a podcast? This is what's gonna be about. Where did that all come from?
So I did a show for school. Jazz 88.3. I was a part
Mm-hmm.
of them. When the pandemic happened, it went out of business and it shut down. So I was like, dang, like, there's no point in doing a podcast. And I wanted to keep doing it, but it's just like, I don't know how to start it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, I was working at Cafeina at the time, and you meet different kinds of people in
Mm-hmm.
customer service.
That's true.
So because of it, I was like, man, these people have great stories, and I already had the skills and tools to give them that platform. So I was like, let me
Mm-hmm.
just try it out. At first it was hard because like in the beginning, I think I just did like movie reviews. I think the Snyder Cut had just come out.
Okay.
So that's how it started. But then I was like, no one is really talking about movies right now. It was 2021, so we were
Okay.
still
Oh yeah,
like
just
pandemic.
out. Yeah. Or
So then that's when I just started like asking people if they want to be on the show, share their
Mm-hmm.
story. I've had guests in between, but like the first time I ever noticed it was when I interviewed Maxine and Eliane from Ryan Brothers City Heights Cafe.
Oh yeah, I know that spot. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that I remember the views were incredible. Like I was just like, wow, these are some great numbers, and I was just like, okay, I think this is where it's supposed to go. And I think by like episode 9, I started figuring out how to do it, and I was like, that's how you continue, the path. Because I think what people want is someone to be out there for the people in your community that is
Yeah,
giving
Mhm.
those platforms out there.
that's true.
Yeah. And what would you say has been your best experience this year and why?
Um, I would say Miriam Perez Rodriguez. We've known each other for a long time,
Mhm.
but if I were to say someone that was there for me all this year, it
Yeah.
was definitely her. I would have to say Miriam.
Shout out to her.
Yeah.
Yes, you would see a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that you would not know about, but she was there, for a lot of it. Even she was there from the very beginning of Catanation. She saw
Oh,
something
yeah.
in me when I did the first show,
Nice.
and now she has been around for a very, very long time, I would say.
That's cool. Yeah, shout out to her. And what message would you like to share with the listeners or viewers that might be going through a tough time due to mental health?
I would just say that it's gonna be tough, but there's you're not alone. I think one of the biggest things for I think we could all agree is that we are afraid to be alone.
Mhm. Yep.
And I think knowing that you have someone there that you can trust, that you can communicate with, that can help you out in any way, shape, or form. I think that is like the biggest help that you can get. And if you're going through a tough time, we're here to listen. If you want an opinion, ask for that opinion.
Mhm.
Have that communication. Have that for yourself, and just know that you're not alone in this world.
Thank you.
Thank you. And how do you feel you've grown or was your sorry?
No,
Did
it
I
was yours.
take it?
No,
I was
no, it
like,
was
I'm not
yours. No,
taking your
it is yours.
how do you feel you've grown from the person you were maybe 5 years ago?
Uh, so I was always considered an outsider,
Mhm.
but the thing is, maybe I was never an outsider. Maybe I just put myself in those shoes. Like I'm just an outsider. I'm just
Mhm.
another face and around. But I'm like, I think I gotta like get myself out of those shoes and just like go out there. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but I do feel like I'm at a point now where people know Catanation, people
Mhm.
know who I am as
Mhm.
Alex Catano, and I think that has been a huge help because like now it's just like I've never changed. I was
Mhm.
always who I was. It's just putting myself out there more,
Mhm.
doing stuff that I would never do, like be the director of professional development for Rotaract, being a
Mhm.
barista, talking to people,
Mhm.
and now working with children. So like it's all culminated in just doing stuff out of the blues that you're doing, not to help just the people around you, but also myself.
Or like getting out of your comfort zone. We literally just had
Yeah,
a
and
topic
I think we
about
can
that.
relate to you on that
Yeah,
too because I think
definitely.
we were talking, or actually in the last episode too, about like thinking outside the box and
Mhm.
pretty much like how we're both also like really shy, and I've
Yeah.
always felt like I was an outsider too. So I feel
Mhm.
you on that because I was also like the quiet one, and I always hated when people are like, "You're so quiet." I'm like, "Well, it's because I just don't have
Yeah.
nothing to say," or like I'm more we're observant is the thing,
Yeah.
and so I'm like I'm watching, but I'm like I might not be saying something, but it's probably like the quietest person is probably the smartest person in the room, is like they say, so. I think also same thing for us. Like I would have never pictured myself doing a podcast
Me
either. Like
neither.
I was like, oh, but like you said, I think
Yeah.
we haven't changed. We just I think maybe gain confidence
There
is
you
what it
go.
is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I can relate to that. And is this the last one, or is you have one more
I
right
have
before after
one
me?
more,
Okay,
which is it kind of
okay.
goes with that one.
So this question we just added it this season, and it's what is a heartful truth about yourself? And those for listening in, we kind of told you before we started, but for those listening in, what we mean by this question is what's something that you know about yourself that you're aware, but you kind of hate hearing a little bit, but it's like it's for your own good type of thing. So what would be your heartful truth that you know about yourself?
Definitely just knowing when to like stop being a giving person. I think, like I said, we brought it up that like some people just want to be heard.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of my biggest struggles this year is just that I was so giving. I was just so trying to be involved. And I think for the most part, it's just that I wanted to feel like I was, a part of it. But at the same time,
Mhm.
just knowing that, you have to kind of back up a little bit and, realize that it's not your fight, or it's like not your place at the moment.
Yeah.
Something that I've struggled with is just like, giving that space to people, and to anybody who knows that, I am sorry if I've never given you that space that I could have. But I'm learning a lot from myself, going to therapy, talking to the right people, and just knowing also, if you do have problems with people, maybe keep them to yourself, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like try to try to communicate with that person, and instead of, because that's, I think, and we talk about that, right? Like now as adults, I feel like that's kind of like a high school mentality where you would talk. And that's one thing I do is like, if let's say I have drama or like some sort of differences with a person, if I know a common friend that knows that person, I would never be the type to be like, that person did me wrong, because I'm like, I think that person will find out for themselves. I just don't like being that person to like talk bad about someone. I think, I don't know, maybe it's just the way I was brought up, because I used to, though, I'm not gonna lie, though, when back in high school I would. And I think, I don't know, you can relate to where we would like talk shit about somebody,
yeah,
right?
when you're a kid,
Yeah,
or
when
when you're young, you don't know better, so you're gonna be talking.
Yeah, and I think now, like you brought up, is like, I think it's communication, and communicating with that person that you might have like the shared differences or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to end the podcast here, what does the Heartful Truth mean to you, and when you hear this phrase?
Well, the Heartful Truth, when I heard it, I remember I was thinking more of like a show where like you kind of like speak from the heart and just like share, how you're really feeling inside. And I've heard a few of your shows and they've been great. And I've noticed that a lot of people are way more open about it. Like I was so surprised when I heard certain stories of certain people and individuals that I've known personally. So it's a great way for us to kind of like learn more like behind the curtains of who we are behind our business.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you. I know like it's hard to like open up. Like we're still kind of learning to also open up, so that way the guests feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And then there is some things that you want to keep to yourself. So we appreciate you anyways, like sharing your story. And especially like you being young, it's cool like for people watching that might be around your age or even younger, to see that you're talking openly
and it's okay
about
to be vulnerable. And as a male too, that's always very tough to kind of express your emotions, but it's very beautiful that you're doing that, because like we said, it's not a lot. I feel like now it's a little bit more like friends that we have too, like are opening more and being okay with crying or saying those things, and before it wasn't like that. So it's very cool to see that.
Yeah, especially for me, like hearing like males talk about like crying and stuff like to me, I was like, damn, I need to cry more, because I'm like, I've always been the type too, like being an older person too, like the older kid in your family. Like I feel like I felt like the world is on your shoulders sometimes, and I'm pretty sure you can probably relate as the older child. But I'm trying to learn too, like same thing. I need to like, one thing is I'm going to start going to therapy. That's my goal this year. I've never done therapy, but I've taken some steps now, baby steps, and hopefully by the end of the year I'll have done therapy. So it's really inspirational that you're doing that. And for people listening in too, I don't know if you guys hear the rain in the background. It's kind of cool. It's not special. It's not special effects, by the way. But it looks beautiful out here. And yeah, it's actually. I was telling Alex here that we this is our first episode here outside on our porch of our new spot that we moved in January. So it's kind of cool. So you're the first guest to be outside. But yeah, thank you. Anything before we get out of here that you want to shout out or anything?
Well, like I said, I am on. As of recording, I'm in episode 93 of overall of Catanation Studios, and we're gonna be doing a live pop-up show at Tierra Central, November 11th for my 100 podcast, where Gabby and Melly will be a part of.
Yes,
we'll be there.
Yeah, it'll be dope. So yeah, and we'll use this as promo too, because this will drop before then, right?
I think like it should. In October. I think.
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, go ahead and follow Alex here at We Are Catanation, and I have his IG here, and follow us at The Heartful Truth, or our individual pages, 7 Octoberz and Melly _
or M09.
M09. Sorry, I always butcher it. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Either way, if you follow us on Instagram, the link is in the bio. And thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Peace.
Peace. Have a good day.